What Sam did, though, at the end of the course, for the last few weeks of the course, was that he initiated a discussion on forms of altruism and ways that we can extend ourselves beyond our racial and ethnic boundaries, these boundaries that we've constructed, and we can compassionately reach out to other people in various forms of altruism. So in a sense, he really ended the course on a positive note in talking about altruism, and specifically we looked at the book on rescuers of Jews during Nazi-occupied Europe. And I think it really did what Sam had always hoped it would do, in that he doesn't want students leaving his classroom with a feeling of despair or with a feeling of just like they can't do anything, like the world's such a terrible place and it's just there's no hope for it. He wants to leave students with a sense of hope, and I think that's what it did for me, ending the course on that note.
I have been deeply involved with two types of human behavior. One type is what I call the nature of evil. Subsumed under this would be such things as anti-Semitism, genocide, racism, discrimination, homophobia. And so I have been reading and teaching and studying in this area. When I was also searching for some sort of antidote to this, what could be done to change the hearts and minds of people, and what can we teach our children to bring about a more caring society.
The Institute focuses on pro-social behavior, and altruism being one extreme example of it. And the Institute keeps on focusing on those forms of behavior and trying to be both scientific in its analysis as well as pragmatic in the sense of trying to find out ways that some of the research ideas suggest might be practical applications. So it has both those goals.
It's kind of a unique place in that it's a center for research on altruistic and pro-social behavior in many, many facets. And it's consistent. I like that about the Institute. It's a place where that kind of research is ongoing. But the Institute is just a place where Sam is constantly on the cutting edge. He's constantly being creative and taking it in new directions. And it's a very dynamic research environment.
When I first read Sam and Pearl's book on rescuers of Jews during Nazi-occupied Europe, what I felt was kind of revealed in that work is that there's a sort of conception, a common conception about people who help, people really specifically who risk their lives to help other people. And it's that they're just ordinary people who come upon these life-threatening situations or these extraordinary situations, and they respond heroically. But that there's really, other than that, there's nothing outrageously extraordinary about them. They just responded in a way that the situation deemed. And what it seemed like Sam and Pearl found through their research, and this came as a surprise to me because I think I held that conception also, is that these people, in fact, were altruistic throughout their lives. They were just altruistic in smaller ways or at levels not as quite as grand or as grandiose as, risking their lives to save another person. But through their lives, day in and day out, they had undertaken smaller acts of altruism and helping, and that came as a bit of a surprise to me. It's not that that these people were just able to respond heroically when the situation deemed. They had practiced the skills that it requires to respond like that in smaller ways throughout their lives. And it really made sense, once, like so many things in the social sciences do, once you learn them, you turn back and say, well, of course, that it's obvious, how would it be any different? But beforehand, we aren't quite able to make those conclusions.
If you were to be interested as a young student to pursue this field of study, I think it is absolutely open. It's not been overstudied. Let me assure you of this. It's not been overstudied at all. I am convinced that there is a need to broaden our understanding of altruism, and to not to only just broaden it, but to disseminate the knowledge. We may be one of very few universities in the United States that teach courses about altruism. Not only is there a need for this topic, this kind of approach to understanding that aspect of human behavior, but I see it in students. There's a they're tired perhaps, and also overwhelmed, some, the sensitive ones, the serious ones, overwhelmed with the number of the amount of evil that exists in this country. And you can make up your own list, from racism to violence to poverty to all kinds of forms of oppression and domination. And when you come to the topic of something that you can do, but you can do it by the way you live and the way you are and the way you relate to other people, students do flock to these classes. It's not just a theoretical class, but it is a class where it not only is an examination of scientific material and literature, but also there's a practical part to it, where there's volunteerism. Students have to volunteer and aid and help in various settings in the community. And so, and of course, we get their reports back of how they felt and what they've experienced and what they've gotten out of it. And they're absolutely invariably inspiring.